fabric. We would source them from different warehouses, and then they would give us the data of their fabric and the sample, and then we basically put these onto the internet so that people can come and browse and shop online.
But the business got off to a rocky start. Few believed anyone could produce quality fashions from fabric remnants. After 4 months, the founders were ready to throw in the towel. But then they had the bright idea of creating their own collection.
When we produce into a t-shirt, then it's easier to them to have a sense of quality when they wear it, when they touch it.
They showed off their t-shirts at a trade show and sold out in just 2 days. From then on, things went quickly. At first, just 5 factories sold their surplus fabric to Moreloop. Now more than 70 textile producers enter remnants into the database. The selection is large enough to attract corporate clients. Moreloop now produces tailor-made products for 150 companies, like insurance firm Allianz.
I think it makes sense. Instead of producing the new fabric, why don't we just use whatever that's already available? And that's good, because it means that you also help all the factory in the country as well.
She's ordered 18,000 polo shirts, masks, and baseball caps, all with the same design. That's a big challenge for the startup.
We have to mix and match with many different types, different shades of fabric, because the quantity is too big, and one leftover fabric could not serve the quantity.
Yet major clients overlook these little differences to show their green cred. As an additional service, Moreloop calculates how much CO2 they've saved, depending on the color, weave, and production method of the chosen material.
The short-term goal is within 2024, we would like to prevent 1 million kilo of CO2 emission through our process. Right now, we have done about 50% in the past 3 years, so we have another 50% to go.
But it's not just big companies who make purchases over Moreloop. So does young designer Taiyida Onburanawan. All the bags and clothes the batik artist creates for her label Marian Ziam are one of a kind. She adapts her ideas to the materials, not the other way around.
Batik is a technique that allows the wax to seep into the fabric. So if the fabric is too thick, then it will be hard to draw on the fabric with wax. So that's a limitation of batik art. I have to take a sample of the fabric to test out if the technique will work or not.
Moreloop's founders only realized these special needs after paying the artist a visit. They're keen to cooperate with designers like Taiyida Onburanawan so that they can present her pieces at international fashion shows. And for the designer, the idea of upcycling is a big plus.
It's more like giving new life to unused fabric. So it doesn't feel like second-hand fabric, and the customers feel the same. It's just repurposing and giving more value to the fabric.
It's a win-win situation. To date, Moreloop has saved some 500 tons of carbon dioxide, the equivalent of the CO2 emitted during 5 million kilometers of car travel. But that's still not enough to satisfy its founders.
We want to be the part of the global transition to a circular economy. We want to play that part, and we want to be part of making this new equilibrium a reality.
Their long-term goal is to keep growing and get 500 textile firms putting fabric into the Moreloop. And they plan to offer more of their own products, along with t-shirts, masks, and PPE.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like that.
From wildfires to devastating storms, floods, and droughts, in 2020 alone, natural disasters displaced over 30 million people. And things are about to get worse. According to World Bank projections, through 2050, climate change could mean 216 million people are forced to leave their homes. They also warn that hotspots of internal migration are bound to emerge unless concerted and immediate action is taken to tackle global emissions. It's not just Africa and Southeast Asia that will be seeing more and more people being forced out of their homes. But not everyone has the financial means to start new lives elsewhere. In the United States, a privileged minority is opting to move further north for the sake of their children, a trend that is creating problems of its own.
18 months ago, Jamie made the decision to move her family over 3,000 kilometers from California to the northern state of Minnesota. She says she had no choice. It was either leave now or threaten her children's future. Jamie is a US climate migrant.
There was the 2018 really devastating wildfire called the Camp Fire that killed, I think, almost 100 people and destroyed thousands of buildings. And our air quality across the Bay Area was like, hazardous quality. Couldn't leave the house for 2 weeks. Schools were canceled. People's, fire alarms were going off inside their houses because of how smoky it was. My own family had health impacts from it.
The family now lives in Duluth, almost at the border with Canada. Jamie herself works as a director of a climate organization and was very aware that there would be a point when they didn't feel safe in San Francisco.
Even I, who am very, kind of climate alarmed, I would say, even I was surprised at how quickly things unfolded and how quickly it felt like moving was the best option for us.
Scientists have mapped out the places that will be most vulnerable to the climate crisis. This is what brings the story back to Duluth. This small city is not only well located, but it also sits on the western edge of Lake Superior. These factors make Duluth a magnet for climate migrants from across the US.
The ones who have actually come here and moved or invested have been North Carolina, California, and Utah is another couple that I'm working with right now.
Realtor and longtime resident Karen Pagel-Gurnt says she's seen a growing trend of people calling her looking for a house in Duluth. But one thing is clear. Climate migration is a choice only affordable to the wealthiest in society. Jalon White-Newsom is a climate justice advocate whose work focuses on the inequality within the climate crisis.
So this is the reality. When you don't have the means or the resources or a family member to stay with, if your home is disrupted by flooding or wildfire or any extreme weather event that we're going to see again more frequently and more intensely, you're kind of lost.
The inequality of this trend not only exists in the locations where climate migrants are leaving, but also in places where they are arriving. In Duluth, Equilibrium 3 works to balance climate solutions with social justice. Former science teacher Jody Slick founded it 10 years ago.
So the more people that come to the community, especially if they have more wealth, that tightens that market for those that are already here. And when we think about things like home ownership, there's huge gaps between our Indigenous population and our Black population. And we're not going to narrow those gaps unless we are really proactive in this era of climate migration.
One of America's Rust Belt cities, Duluth was declared almost dead after industrial decline. The mayor is ready to seize the opportunity of more people coming to Duluth, but accepts there will be challenges.
I think the danger is in two things. One is to ignore it and not be planful about it, because whether or not I like it, whether or not it's comfortable, it's happening. And so we want to be planful about that and to make sure that as a city, we are responding to that. I think it would be dangerous to ignore it or to pretend it's not happening. I also think it would be dangerous to not pay attention now to the needs that are already here and to just chase that growth.
The city is home to a deep-rooted community that is mostly proud to live there. They welcome new people, but also have mixed feelings when it comes to climate migration.
Certainly not going to say we're the right people. It's really expensive to find a house right now. I know there's a lot of people moving from out of state to Minnesota, so I can see if the scientists are pushing them here, it'd be an easy thing for them to want to do, but I think us Minnesotans are definitely noticing that with higher prices on things.
I mean, I would if I was in a place where I felt it wasn't safe, so more power to them, let them come.
Adding to the social challenges, another question rises when talking about climate migration. Can there be a place that is safe from climate change? Science is clear that the effects of global warming will be felt everywhere, something that Jamie Alexander and her family have experienced firsthand.
Our first summer here, we had wildfires that Minnesota has never seen before in the Superior National Forest that created 400 AQI, hazardous air quality for us here. Never had northern Minnesota seen anything like that. How foolish of us to think that we could run away from it. I worry that this climate migration conversation, of which I am a part, could lead us to be complacent. As we're working to keep ourselves safe and our families and communities safe, we also need to be addressing what is causing it.
Duluth's not immune from the changing climate, but it could be a blueprint for US communities preparing for a future dominated by climate migration.
Our global snack this week is from the Cape Verde Islands.
The island of Sal is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Cape Verde, an archipelago country off the coast of West Africa. At Cape Fruit, they're cooking up a twist on Cape Verde's national dish. Kashupa, like it's never been done before. Kashupa is usually made with meat and fish. But chef Lemis Pereira is trying something new. We wanted to make something from Cape Verde, and since our focus at Cape Fruit is on vegetarian food, we invented this. First, she fries onions in oil. Then it's time to add the kashupa mix, typical ingredients found on Cape Verde, including milled corn, beans, and chickpeas. Since it's vegetarian, we don't add fish or meat. When the clients want, it can also be made with vegetables or eggs, fried, scrambled, as an omelet, however they want it done. I love it. While the kashupa is frying in the pan, Lemis gets a side of vegetables ready to go. Her colleagues are busy serving up juices and other meals using natural foods and flavors. It's a women-owned and operated business. Manager Susie has been running the show for 10 years. We are only women. It's always women working here. Right now, there are 6 of us working here. Back in the kitchen, the kashupa is ready to go, and it's plating time. There are many different versions across the islands of Cape Verde, but what unites them all, kashupa is a comfort food. Now, this local favorite is reaching new audiences. These visitors from Sweden love the hearty dish with flavors and vegetables.
So you will enjoy it if you eat it, I think. And it's good for the vegetarians to have options, yeah. It has a lot of flavors, savory, so it goes really well.
A humble dish that punches above its weight. Kashupa from this corner of Cape Verde is a modern take on an island classic.
That's all from us this week at Global 3000. Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the show, so don't forget to write us at global3000@dw.com or check out our Facebook page, DW Global Ideas. See you next time, and bye-bye for now.
Behind me are some of the nurses who will be amongst the very first 150 people who will receive the vaccinations today. As you can see, the event is about to kick off and plans are ongoing right now.
Hi, I'm at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi. It's been a memorable evening. We've just received the first consignment of COVID-19 vaccines. This is thanks to the COVAX facility. UNICEF used its strength in procurement and transport to bring the vaccines here to Kenya. And what we will be doing is taking them to the depots, both central and then regional depots, so that these can be further distributed and the vaccination campaign can start. The vaccination campaign will be targeting priority groups such as essential health workers and other workers and other population groups who might be most at risk. What this shows is what we call vaccine equity. Finally, we're having many more countries have access to the COVID-19 vaccines. As we say, nobody's safe until everybody is safe. We really want to say thank you to all the donors who have contributed to the COVAX facility. Without your support and also the leadership of the government of Kenya, all this would not be possible. Thank you.
Welcome to Global 3000. In Ghana, people are finding creative solutions to the ever-increasing problem of plastic waste. In Iran's capital Tehran, determined cyclists are lowering pollution levels. And air that leaves you breathless. How Indonesia's children are struggling with smog. Around the world, 9 out of 10 of us breathe in air with emissions levels deemed to be too high. The World Health Organization estimates that some 7 million people die each year as a result of air pollution. The group distinguishes between air quality indoors and outdoors. Some 3 billion people have no alternative but to cook and heat their homes using fuels which emit toxic gases. And more than 4 million people each year lose their lives due to poor air quality outside. Pollutants from factories and transport can have a detrimental impact on our respiratory system, as well as our heart. Children are among the worst affected. In the first episode of our new series, Unseen, we take you to Indonesia, revealing the plight of children living in a polluted world.
Zidane was first diagnosed with asthma when he was 2. The nebulizer again? No? Then you'd better stay home? Where can't you go?
Outside.
So you'd rather play?
At home.
There's a lot of anxiety about air pollution, especially in Jakarta. Unfortunately, we had to resign ourselves to living in a city that has one of the highest rates of air pollution in the world.
People with asthma, like my son or me, need to avoid breathing in dirty air whenever possible. We have to wear a mask every time we go out. It's been getting worse year after year as the amount of traffic increases. The air pollution can cause Zidane's asthma to flare up. It's a pity the government has chosen to build even more coal-fired power plants. Solar energy would be much better.
Jakarta used to have a lot more green areas. Now they're gone because of people seeking profits from new building projects everywhere. Right now, we are at Baranda Home, which we designed and built. It's a combination of a family home and lodge. The entire building is covered in vegetation, improving the microclimate around the location. It's even possible to lower the room temperature inside the building by around 1 to 5 degrees.
At least -5 atau 1 derajat.
I wish we could move to the mountains, where it's cooler, but not too cold, and where there are still lots of trees, like in a village.
If we can create an economy based on environment, we have all the technologies in place now. The question is, how serious are we to actually reduce the carbon emissions?
We need to balance all of the elements. Singapura, yang sebetulnya negara itu adalah
The city-state of Singapore strikes a balance between humans and their built-up environment.
manusia, kemudian
Its design incorporates nature and buildings in a harmonious way.
alamnya yang didesain sedemikian.
There's now growing awareness about the issue.
Sekarang mungkin mulai ada kesadaran kembali.
Taking Zidane to the park has a really positive impact on his health. I have high hopes for Zidane. He was smart and lively from a very young age. I hope his asthma can be cured, so he can run around and play with his friends again, and not get tired so quickly.
Another country grappling with air pollution is Iran. With the pandemic, international sanctions, and economic hardship making everyday life a challenge, climate change is rarely top of the agenda. But in the capital, Tehran, individuals are pushing and pedaling for change. Riding a bike through the streets of Tehran is a potentially hazardous activity. Exhaust emission levels here are up to 8 times higher than WHO safety recommendations. The city is often smothered in smog. 37-year-old Elnoz Nazari wants to change this. She studied abroad and now runs a cafe in Tehran. She recently joined a group of young people who call themselves Green Clubs. Their goal is to make the city greener.
The bigger problem is that we don't see the potential alternatives. We think that because Tehran has a lot of traffic and has a lot of pollution, it's impossible to ride a bicycle or to walk or to run. But the fact is that we're running to reduce that pollution.
Elnaz Nazari's cafe is a meeting point for a small, dedicated cycling community. Twice a week, the group offers free repair services and coffee. Many of the cyclists are women. Though they're not expressly prohibited from riding bicycles, a lot of hardliners continue to insist that it's un-Islamic. But according to these women, a lot of Iranians see it differently.
Most of the reactions I get when people see me biking are positive. A lot of people encourage me, especially women. They clap to me from their car windows, honk loudly and call out, "Mashallah, how great."
For Elnaz Nazari, cycling presented a business opportunity. During the pandemic, she started selling sourdough bread. This allowed her to continue earning money during the lockdown. Initially, one of the biggest challenges was handling deliveries. She asked a few of her cyclists, and soon she had a small fleet of volunteer food couriers.
It's been very great. We started with 4 cyclists about 2 months ago. Now the club is close to 100. Wow. It's great.
One of the cyclists is photographer Shantine. Every week he takes an afternoon off so he can take part.
Up until now, we haven't had the infrastructure for biking. Thanks to our efforts, we can hopefully make officials aware of the fact that there are people like us out there. Maybe then they'll build bike lanes all over the city.
And off they go. Shantine and his friend Mohammed are heading to Tajrish, a neighborhood in the north of the city. Bike lanes are still quite rare here as well. The leader of the pack is Piruz Hanachi, the mayor of Tehran since 2018. Though he only cycles with male colleagues, he's regarded as a reform-oriented politician. Every Tuesday, he rides with them as part of an event known as Car Free Tuesday.
For years in Tehran, we've thought only of cars. We've built roads purely for automobiles, which effectively only encourages people to drive them. It's time for us to rethink things and create more public space for bikes and pedestrians.
His goal is that within the next 5 years, cyclists will make up 5% of the traffic in Tehran. Currently, it's less than 1%. Shantine has reached his first customer of the day. Ovideh says she uses the green delivery service once a week.
It avoids my time-consuming traffic in Tehran. I make new acquaintances. I love having tea with all the people that come here.
As volunteers, Shantine and Mohammed make time for tea. For the time being, customers don't have to pay for their service.
I really like doing it because I like contributing to my city's development. It's good that more people ride bikes, but also that companies are supporting our movement.
For Elnaz Nazari, the scheme is more of a movement than a profit-making venture. Like many other food service workers during the pandemic, she's had to fight to survive. But she still stands by her project.
If I were to ever leave Iran, or if I were to ever leave this business, I wanted something more than just the walls and the food and the name to stay behind me. I wanted to start a movement, something to be remembered and something that could be continued with or without me.
Her goal is to reach as many people as possible. She believes that's the only way the movement will have a real chance in Iran. In other parts of the world, cycling is a lot more straightforward.